How's it going, everybody? It was another fun game to be a part of, where it comes right down to the end and got to go battle for it. So to me, that's what makes winning locker room so much fun to enjoy, when you just fight for it and go for it. And so there was a lot of good things to be excited about, after the game. But I think more, as you're, kind of talking about the game and the matchups, I was really pleased with D-Law, and so I know some people thought he was a forgotten man around here. I promise you, inside this building, that man is not forgotten, and around the league, he is not. So I thought that was, such a cool thing for him to go, and I think it kind of speaks really to the versatility of the group. And when you're trying to play good defense, it's not just one thing you're after, and I know a lot of people talk about takeaways, and we certainly haven't had the share of them that I hope we were going to get and that we will. But I would say, if you really want to be excellent, you got to attack in all ways. You got to rush, you got to create takeaways, you got to play good in the red zone, you got to play good on third down. Those are things that in every way you're attacking from every angle and trying to use different guys to do that. And so it was kind of cool to see some guys have some new ones. Saw a cool blitz by Donovan off the edge to create some, and having different guys step up with different roles. That's what I love most about this group. They're unselfish. They love to battle for one another, and we're going to keep pushing us hard to see our standard of where we can get to. And because I think we have a lot of room to grow, and that's what we'll certainly be pushing the guys on this week, to find those areas that we want to improve on.
David Moore, Dallas Morning News. Still a relatively small sample size, but
Yeah.
your pressure seems to be at a higher level than it was in general last year. Do you think it is? And how difficult is it to get that to come together? Because like you say, you're so versatile in there, and you're mixing things up so much. How do you find that balance to get that consistent pressures?
I agree on both things. It is an early sample size, but I do feel like we started faster because of the connection of the players earlier, and knowing we're going to put people in different roles. And so where last year it was more, let's experiment, let's try that, let's see what that could look like, to now, you're going to go here, you're going to go here, this is what we're going to go. And so I think the assistant coaches and the players have really found their rhythm, their battle rhythm in doing that. When we do walkthroughs, you're here, you're here, you're here, and it may change week to week. You remember a couple weeks ago we had you here, and now we're going to put you over here because now we'd like to run a different pressure, or this is going to look like a pressure, but we're playing coverage to do that. And so I think having that type of versatility helps, because scouting ourselves is a big part of it, to make sure this is what we did 2 weeks ago, and now this week we want it to look like that, but maybe let's try something different from there. So that's kind of the fun part of the challenges that go of playing each team. But I agree, it's a small sample size, and I feel like we got lots of stuff to improve on, but I am pleased with the gains that we're starting to make, and running stunts and being involved in our pressure package. Those are two parts of that.
How do you not outsmart yourself when you have that many moving parts?
It's a good question. I think you figure that out in practice. So you know what? Out that comes. So sometimes we'll work on something that's not quite game ready and say, nope, that one's not there yet. And so we have a couple of things as we work through it. If we just don't nail the details of it, I'd say it's not ready to go into the game yet. Doesn't mean it's thrown out, but it's not, doesn't have enough seasoning in it yet, So we need more time, more space to work on it. And sometimes I'll need a few weeks if we're trying something, till I feel like, all right, we're ready to roll this one out and get going. But until then, it's back out on the practice field to make sure we can, handle things just right.
Speaking of seasonings, how Michael Parsons, how healthy was he yesterday, and how limited was he, and he was still able to affect the pass rush to set things for other guys?
Yeah, and I knew, I think you guys all know the competitor that he is, and so it would be hard to hold him out of just about anything. He just always ready to go and fight for it. So after being sick, coming out on practice, even that kind of energy, felt like the kid at Christmas. Like, settle down here, all right? We got to go to practice. Like, what's the music? What's this? He was just so excited for everything. So he wasn't limited, and we didn't limit him into it. But certainly anytime you're coming off of sickness, it can affect you from weight and hydration and all that. But at the end of it, he did a really good job of pushing himself to get ready to play, and so we all appreciate that.
Did Did some of his stuff open things up, set up one-on-ones for DeMarcus?
Oh, well, not just for him, but for everybody, and so when you have that, okay, let's say this person's, wanting to get chipped, there's some moments that happen for someone else that they don't. So there'll be games like that where he'll get extra attention and some others may not. And there'll be other times where, people are pretty static to say, hey, this is how we want to play. And so that's our job as coaches within the game to try to, look at that and figure it out and see what it goes. Because sometimes just the balance of the game changes, and so how do they want to go play?
Michael Gelkin, Dallas Morning News. On the third down stop in which Micah with speed to power knocked the right guard on his back, in the 5 seconds leading up to that snap, DeMarcus was bouncing around from over center, a 5 tech, then to a 3 tech when the ball is snapped. What does that movement do in terms of its importance for that play? And is that free range that DeMarcus has to just move around, or is that part of design?
I'd say a little bit of both. Oftentimes, an offense will utilize all of the shot clock to, try to see where someone is. So, early on it may be, I'm going to line over here, but I know I'm really going to rush over there. So when you're always in 4-down spacing, there's advantages to that. I'm talking about like a defensive line, a 4-down or a 5-down, because your get-off's good, you know where your angles are. The flip side of that is being in some different alignments to where a guard now has to set on somebody that's a yard or two off the ball, and that feels different. And they're not, where they're supposed to be, at the start of it. I think they're going to be here, and then by the time the snap comes, they're over to another side. So that's the advantage, and our job is kind of going back to what David said, is like having the right balance of making sure that you have enough of both, where you can mix around when the shot clock's not an issue, but if it's in a 2-minute and hurry up, those are ones, hey, let's get down, get your point on, and get it on. So having the balance of doing both is important, and some of that's part of the scouting report to say, hey, we're going to try to move around until it's time to go, and other times, let's get our feet in the grass and go attack.
Skylar.
Skylar Dixon with the AP. You used these 2 words together just a few minutes ago, depth and versatility. Are those one and the same in your view, and how is the depth and versatility of this front compared to some of the other?
I would say I don't think of them as the same. And here's why. Sometimes depth can be maybe a backup only at one spot, but you have the ability to do that. And so what versatility means is whether you're a starting player or part of the rotation, that you can play more than one position. And so we really pride ourselves in having multiple people play in different roles. So I think the versatility is separate from the depth. The depth means, can you handle it from here to over to here to over to here? So a person like Dorrance Armstrong would be able to play almost any of the positions on the defensive line because he has the knowledge to go, what could happen here, what could happen here, what could happen here, where other players, hey, let's leave him in one spot and let him do his thing well. So I do think they're different, but I do like the depth that we've had. And the only way you really find out if you have versatility is, trying those things out in practice and in preseason games and in training camp to say, that looked good, let's do some more of that, or let's slide it right back down to where, you may end up. And so at safeties, we have a lot of versatility because we ask most all of them to play, in the back end, down by the line of scrimmage, and we do a lot of that with the defensive ends as well. Some of them play outside, some play inside. So I would say those 2 positions probably require the most versatility, but all the positions need the depth.
Kevin Gray, 105 through the fan. It seems like Trayvon Diggs has found a new level of physical aggressiveness, it seems like, in the first few weeks of the year. Can you speak to his emotional and aggressive maturity and nature that we've seen through him through the first few weeks of this season?
I think, you felt his intent, going in. Usually you can feel someone's energy when you're standing next to somebody, and I sensed that, in the game leading up to that last night. And I thought he really had a good chance at one to go back and, get in front of the ball to go make a play. I think you guys probably saw that one too. So it was nice to see at the end of the game, one come his way. But I thought just from an intent standpoint, when you're really ready and you're really feeling it, it's like you can't wait for the game to start. Like, I hope they try me. And so when you get to that space as a ball player, not only do you know your keys, but like, I only know my keys, and I want him to throw it my way, that's when you're in your best space. And if you can get a player to stay in that pocket of readiness, I think that's when you'll see the best results. And so I felt that energy from him of what they were going to do. And when you know that as a player, you really you can't wait to kick off. You know, you're waiting for these moments, and I certainly felt that energy from him.
Babe Loftmer, Dallas Cowboys Radar Network. Being a Jersey guy, you know, going up there, how special is it for you, not just only to be there, but obviously to go up there, get a win, be in that environment?
You know, it's I've always enjoyed going back to New Jersey for games, whether it's the Giants or the Jets, and the reason behind that, that's where my first love of football came. You know, from growing up as a kid in that era and in that, you know, part of the world. So, you know, looking back and always having a chance to go back to have games there has always been an absolute blast. You know, family and friends, yes, but also this is kind of where, like, you know, professionally, that what I loved most about football growing up, that's where it started. And so watching the teams, you know, for me of the Giants, you know, in the 80s growing up, like that was a really cool thing for me to see. So anytime I get to go back there and you see some of the pictures on the wall, even walking up to the press box of guys of Leonard Marshall or Carl Banks or guys that all of our Cowboys fans would know the names. Mine were different because I saw those guys, you know, I watched them at training camp in New Jersey at Fairleigh Dickinson. I watched them, you know, kind of all the time. So it's special being in that area for me only because that's kind of where it all started for, you know, how much I loved football growing up.
Dan, Todd Archer with ESPN. You said DeMarcus is not forgotten in the building. What does he mean to the group?
There's a lot, and I think sometimes, Todd, it doesn't show up on the stat sheet because I promise you he wasn't forgotten in here, and I know he's not forgotten in the other buildings that people are playing. But there's also a standard that a 30-year-old DN with real high standards about competing and toughness and performing add to your room, and DeMarcus does that. He has the edge. He has you know, a really tough-minded spirit about him, and that can be contagious to other guys to keep rising that standard. His practice habits, the way he goes about it, sometimes just an encouraging voice, sometimes a stern voice to say, hey, this is not what we said we were going to do or how we're going to go get it on. So to me, there's the things that show up on the stat sheet and then the things that are harder to show up on the stat sheet but are super important to us as coaches is that leading and showing a young player this is how we do it here. And he's got great command of how to play the position. He's got great command of what it takes. And it's a great way for him to pay it forward for the ones that showed him the way. And I think sometimes you know, when you get on the back nine of your career, you get those moments to pay it forward again. And as a ball player, that's a big responsibility. And I know the one that he takes seriously.
Has he told you about guys that taught him coming in?
I know that Tyrone had a big impact on him coming up, but we haven't shared that actually about who, but sometimes it's studying somebody and then getting to meet that person. It might not always be a teammate of yours, but it's somebody that you really admire their game. Hey, tell me how you did that. And so for him to have the knowledge, how to share it, and but at the end of it, one thing you can count on from him is he is tough, and he is going to bring it every single time. And toughness is a talent too, and he has it in a large amount. And so I love the energy and the toughness that he brings to the defense, and other people feed off that too.
Patrick.
Hey, Coach. Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Kind of circling back to the equation of depth. The defense is playing at a very high level right now, and it's not even whole. You talk about Jaron Curse, for example.
Yep.
So this is kind of a two-part question. A, how is Curse coming along, and how does he look for maybe the Commanders game? And B, whenever he is ready to come back, how do you balance that with like the impact play of the Donovan Woods?
Well, we're fortunate that way that the three of them really, have unique roles that they play for us. So we're hopeful, when J.K. does come back, that we, put him into the spots and all the unique things that he does. So we'll get a better sense as the week goes on, from practicing and to see what his readiness is for the game. I can promise you he's chomping at the bit to get going. So we're hopeful, as I get, the next few days, I'll have a better sense. Tomorrow won't be as fast. So for him, really, we need to go at full speed to go. But no problem fitting him back into it. I can promise you that. We need more. So and Basham as well. Hopefully, that's coming back. On the on the way back as well. So between those two guys, they add a lot of stuff to us, and we'll feature them in all their very best ways. But I am excited to get J.K. back. He's got not only does he have a great football mind, he's got a very calming presence. He's an excellent communicator. He's very decisive, and as a player, that's an important quality to have. Not where you're waiting for the call or you're waiting to see what could happen. He's very clear on what to do and how to do it. And much like we were talking about D-Law, J.K. has a good edge about him too. And all of that, like I said, for us to be as good as we can be, we want to attack from every way and be, as good as we can be in all the situations. The way we can get after the QB, the way we can get to the ball, playing good on third down. And guys like Law and J.K. and others, they make up that identity of toughness and finishing and going for it. And so the fact that we've been in this last 2 weeks some close games at the end, I love that, because you can't talk about it. You've got to do it, and you've got to live it, and you've got to be about it. And so if you really want to fight, you got to go in those fights, and you got to win. You got to come out the other end strong. And so to have those moments at the end of the game, I absolutely love it. And I thought those guys, really played with a lot of toughness and finishing. And so if it had to go longer, we were ready to get it on longer. And so if it had to go 5 quarters, we were ready to go 5 quarters. So that's the mindset, that's the attitude that I like from our group. And I think we're going to continue to grow. I feel like we're just getting going about what we can be, and I'm very excited to see that.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. How much fun are you having right now, just all the different pieces you're having? I don't know if you're thinking back to when you first got started, where you had, you're playing chess in a sense.
Yes, and so it's days like today. I just, you come out of the lab and there's stuff in your head of how you want to play and how you want to feature the guys. And it is fun because we just want to make sure that we can go attack. And so this week might be different than how we did it week 1 or week 2. And so having different guys to do that with is fun. And so I know Micah gets a lot of where is he going to play and what's he going to do. And I would recommend anybody, why don't we enjoy where he plays, or enjoy how he plays, not where he plays. And because it's not going to be the same this week, it's going to be the same next week and the week after that. So we can do the dance every week, but I'd say more fun to watch how we attack and how we deploy guys as opposed to predicting where they're going to be coming from, because I don't even know yet. So I got time to figure it out, right? It's still, the game's not till the weekend.
What level of encouragement do you take from the number of almost plays in last night's game, where there were a lot of sacks you guys did record, but there are also many that you didn't? You had the interception to seal it. There are also some chances beforehand. And
I don't know if encouragement, Mike's the word I'd use for that. But I would say those missed opportunities we do learn from, to make sure that when this moment happens, we got to deliver it. And so I do like that, to point it out. And quite honestly, those are some of the very best teaching moments, to find ways to say, can we put ourselves in a position to finish this play? Can we align ourselves in a spot where we can make that one? And so those are the moments that you get to challenge and push the guys to say, can you make that play? And I would say, if you're a real competitor, the answer is usually, hell yeah. And so, well, let's see it. So how do we drill it? How do we put somebody into a space to, if it's a practice of a low ball down here, how do we work those? How do we, practice that, a tip ball, that can go to an interception you have to break on. So tackling, like for instance, I wasn't pleased that the quarterback was able to get out some last night, but he is an excellent scrambler. And I knew that going into the game. So it wasn't like, I wasn't expecting some of that. Like, he is excellent at that part of his game, and he has been for a long time. So we just know we got work to do there to get better. I was pleased that we worked hard last week on tackling the quarterback, in the open field. We had 2 fouls the week before, and so digging into the tape to say, on the way down, he's sliding, he's diving, how do we not get the foul and still play rugged and tough? And so the fun part about coaching is the teaching that goes into it. And so last Friday and Saturday, we talked about, tackling a quarterback. We found other scrambles around the league, and what does this slide look like? What about the quarterbacks diving? So it's fun because not every week's the same, where there's always something that usually comes up to say, hey, let's put a little extra emphasis on this specific thing. and then let's work our ass off to get better at it. And then you keep stacking those weeks and those days, and hopefully, 3 and 4 months down the line, you're saying, man, we've put some real good work in on some specific things to get better at. And we'll have some more again this week to do.
Is there, I guess, maybe to better phrase it, is it a good sign when you have so many examples of just teachable moments of if we change this, if we make an incremental improvement, we can close the gap and make that play?
I think you're able to do it when you're together longer. And so early on, you just want to make sure your fundamentals are right. Are you just busting your ass to get to the ball? Are you playing hard enough? Are you taking good angles to get tackling? So now you can take the next step. Hey, in this empty check, if you move your alignment over here, this could affect the protection to where the back has to step. So now you're able to talk about higher level things. But at the top of the pile for me and for us always is about the effort. And I would hope that anytime all of our family and friends and you guys watch us play, you say these guys get after it and they play hard. Because if that part is right, then the other things can come into play. But if you don't have that part right, you can never be as good as you can be on defense. But so that part is always, to me, the top of the pile, and then we keep working. So I would say, yeah, I'm encouraged to see those, but I do love the teaching that comes from those.
Brad Sham, Cowboys Radio. You mentioned Armstrong before. He doesn't get talked about a lot. What are his attributes that are showing up the last few weeks?
I'd say it's not the, we'll hear a word that sometimes isn't that sexy, it's consistent, but like, man, is that a reliable thing to be as a pro ball player, to say, not only is he doing his job, he is doing it at the right spot, at the right time, and when it's his moment to make it, he can deliver. And I think that's what I admire so much about DA. He can be left side, right side, inside, and you can count on him to do it right, all the time, over and over and over. And so, like, as a teammate, those are some of the guys that you respect the most, because I know this guy to my right, he's going to get it right all the time. And so he's a good player. He's got bend. He's got length, to pass rush. He's got, 35-inch arms. So he can use all that length, and he's way more bendy than you think for a guy that's his size. So he adds a lot of versatility, but consistency was the first thing that came to my mind when you brought up his name.
Kevin Gray, 105 through the fan. When you have defenses that are playing at this high of a level, even at different points of the season, how do you continue to keep your guys motivated, and how do you tailor that message specifically to this group, knowing the challenges that you guys are facing week in and week out?
I think every week, that's what's like fun about it. This is the new challenge. These are the new matchups. And so when we get into that meeting room tomorrow, this one's passed. And now how do we want to go play, and how do we go attack, and what's the game plan going to look like? So what do we need to do from certain people to deliver, quite honestly, to say this is tough matchups? And if you look at Washington, they've got fantastic skill players who've got speed to really go make plays, especially at receiver and running back. Like, you see them over and over again making these big plays. So those are ones that you put the tape on. You say, okay, these are matchups, and we got to go win these ones. And it's going to be a battle, and how will we go do it? So it's fun because each week is different. So it's kind of the etch-a-sketch, man. Clear it out, and then we go right through the same process again tomorrow on the first, second, into the third down, and then we get into the red zone. So that's what's fun about it, is you just stay connected to the process of getting ready, and then by the end of the week, all that information's up in the computer upstairs. Then you can turn, okay, the focus off them is gone. Now it's about how we're going to play. And once you have all the information about the game plan, now how are they going to have to deal with you in the way that you play, and the style that you play, and the energy and the effort and toughness that you play with? So there's a shift that takes place, on a Saturday night, to say, I got the information, I know the game plan, and I am going to play fast as hell and hit and be violent and get the ball and do the things that we love doing as a defense. But to get to that point where you can feel that ready, that moment I was talking about at Diggs, like, I can't wait for this game to start, because you just have prepared and you're ready. It takes a lot of work and sacrifice to get there. So we just try not to look too far down, even 4 days away. Like, tomorrow, what do we got to get done tomorrow? And then just work at that. Then the next day we'll do it again. So we try to not even put the game into that focus of the day. Just say, how are we going to get better today?
Wrap it up with Dave. Ooh, I hate the last question, because that's like the end of, that's the bad question where they storm off. Hopefully that's not.
We're out of here.
It appears that Anthony Barr and what he brings to the table has kind of provided some more flexibility for what you do with Micah. And if that is the case, because he came in late, you know, obviously wasn't here at training camp and all the other, did you have to kind of go back into the lab and say, okay, now we got this, we got this big 6'5" guy that can run, so I can do this with Micah. So did that change your mindset a little bit, or?
I think, well, one, we knew I'd been bothering just about everybody in the organization, Mike and Will and Steven and everybody for Anthony for a long time. So pre-draft, post-draft, you know, so.
you had a plan, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I definitely had a plan. And he has exceeded what I knew. He had, you know, physical traits to play, but what I didn't know was this is like another coach on the field. His instincts, his awareness, his way to play. We're talking about what what Law, you know, with Todd earlier, brings to the team and the toughness in the way, and Anthony brings in a different way of the knowledge and the movements and knowing where to go and getting someone else lined up. But having that type of size, we thought would add another rush element to say, okay, can a back, you know, block him, or is that a matchup we think we can win with? And so that's how we tried to pull it. But it didn't necessarily involve more end or more linebacker. It just involved more matchups.